because I'm fascinated by this, right? I've been on this kind of journey of kind of trying to understand the different selves that we inhabit in different points of our lives, you know? Because when I was a kid, I loved football, and that was me. I was known as the football guy.
Yeah.
And everything I did was just football, play football all day. And then if you see me now, I don't play football as much. I'm doing poetry, I'm doing podcasts. Those two selves are like opposing in a sense. Some people would think, right? Friends that I know from childhood, they meet me now, like, I can't believe you're doing this. But like, life is linear. I was always going to be on this trajectory.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the path was always going to lead here because that's just how my path of life has gone. So you get me thinking about how we compartmentalize ourselves in our own heads as old self, new self, self at peace, self not at peace, you know, but it's all one. What has your relationship been with like the different versions of yourself? Is basically my question.
Mm.
Easy question, right?
My relationship with different versions of myself. Um, oh no, maybe I think there was a time, for example, when I was younger, when I was like a teenager, I went through like a tough time.
Mm,
Um, and then I think going out of that, so I was like bullied at school, and
mm,
then I felt a lot of shame around that.
mm,
And then I had a very hard time even like accepting that. And then it was almost like, oh no, that wasn't me, or like that.
mm.
Oh, it was almost like, oh, I don't want to, like,
Associate with that version
yeah,
of
or it's like
yourself. Yeah.
I'm not, that didn't happen to me, or I don't identify with that, or it's almost like I don't want to talk about it. Like
Mm,
I wouldn't tell anyone about
mm,
it because I was so ashamed.
mm,
And then I think later on, you just accept that version of yourself later on, like your past self, and you think, well, you know, I kind of forgive myself because I guess I didn't at the time, and I almost had like an anger or like this shame about myself, and
mm.
kind of wishing that had never happened to me, or feeling like you suck because this happened to you. And then I think, yeah, as time goes on, you just kind of accept that version of yourself, and you forgive yourself, and you're like, well, I every time, like in every phase of my life, I was trying my best, and I think that's the best you can do. And definitely sometimes I would cringe when I think of how I was as a teenager, for example.
We all do.
But I guess that's just how I was, and I think I just have to accept that version of myself, and also think, well, that was me at the time, and that was me trying my best. And maybe in 10 years I'll cringe about me right now, right? Like that's just how it is.
That's growth, right?
Yeah.
I think so important. This idea of like accepting your past selves is so important to like understanding where you are today. Because I feel like a lot of people that I speak to have this question around like, how do I find my thing? How do I find peace? So how do I find, I guess synchronicity of like merging of selves, right? And I always say you have to go back to when you didn't understand yourself. It's almost like going back to that child within you and talking to them. I wrote this piece like years ago I was talking to a child version of myself about love. I was like, oh, like I know why you kind of hold your heart. I know why you guard your heart because of these things, and these things aren't the case anymore. And you can
Oh, right.
kind of talking, because I had conceptualized the kid as like a kid with a massive sword and a massive shield, but that was too heavy for him to hold. And I was like, these are too heavy for you to hold. You got to let go of these, and kind of like that kind of relationship, that kind of dialogue with my idea of myself as a kid, and having that kind of conversation with it helped me in the moment, come to terms of how I was kind of making my decisions. So I think it's very important for people to kind of like revisit themselves or revisit like different versions of themselves and make peace with it. Because I think that's how you kind of find peace. That's how you kind of find the next version. You have to allow yourself to, and then you can move forward,
Yeah, for sure. I
move
think you
forward and
can't
grow.
move forward if you're still stuck in the past, right? And
Mm,
if you're still, like if you didn't get over past trauma or past difficulties, like you need to kind of heal from these things so that you can like grow,
mm,
basically.
mm.
I think.
What do you think about the idea of like letting go of stuff in order to go forward. Like, do you know what I'm trying to say? Like the
Yeah.
idea of like letting go of like certain things in your old life. Like for me, for example, right? I had to let go of a lot of like anger, or a lot of like confusion that I had about my upbringing, like a lot of like anxiety. I had to let go of anxiety a lot because it was like, okay, I was trying to understand the world around me, and I was like, okay, that's never gonna happen. Like the world is always in flux, it's changing. You can understand yourself, but you can never really understand the world. And then letting go of that kind of anxiety around understanding the world allowed me to kind of focus on myself. And it was like, okay, I had to do that in order to go forward. What do you think about that idea of like letting go? And the reason I'm staying on this topic is because I want people to understand what it's like to kind of grow as who you are in different places. Like I talked at the beginning of the episode, it isn't just like, oh, I come to London and everything's fine. You can't just go to a new place and everything's fine. There's a lot of internal work that you have to do in order to become who you are. And I think in that conversation we're having about you going to all these different places is a lot of internal work that you had to do and understanding about yourself in order to become who you are today. So that's why I'm trying to like stay on the topic about, okay, how do people do that? What are the steps people can take in order to find that path for themselves,
Yeah.
So yeah, on that topic, like how do you understand like letting go? What role does letting go play in becoming who you are?
I think that's the only way really, is to let go with everything. So I think like I always was quite interested in, I would say, Eastern philosophies like Buddhism. I'm also quite interested in Hinduism and things like that. But for example, in Buddhism, they always say how you should never be attached to anything. And basically attachment only gives you suffering. And I think there's a lot of truth in that, and that you need to let go in order to grow and in order to um feel at peace, I would say.
Mm,
Because if you're too attached to something, and it's true, I think that will only give you suffering because things change all the time, right? But being attached to something is almost like wanting this thing to stay permanent, but it's never going to stay permanent because everything is always changing.
mm,
So you kind of like in this illusion that's just not based in reality, and that will only give you like bring you suffering.
mm,
So yeah, I think it's really important to let go of everything, really.
mm. Yeah, and I think it's
Yeah.
also like once you let go, it's also like moving forward with conviction. I've been thinking about this idea of the self-fulfilling prophecy. I want to know what you think about this. The idea,
That like when you think of something and then it happens?
yeah, it's like you kind of make it happen by thinking about it.
So that kind is that like manifestation?
Kind of, which is what I'm not sure, which is what I want to talk
Yeah.
about. Like the idea of like, because I looked at the phrase and I was like, that's so interesting. It's self-fulfilling. It's like you have to fulfill your idea of self in order for it to come true. I thought that's such an interesting way of phrasing it because, you know, within like, say for example, for me, right, when I went from, okay, I want to do poetry, I wasn't a poet just because I said I wanted to do poetry.
Yeah.
I had to say, okay, I want to do poetry. I remember I was telling my friends, I am now a person who does poetry.
Yeah.
They were like, what are you talking about, bro? You play football. Like, I was like, no, refer to me as poet because I'm a poet.
Right.
And I didn't even write a poem yet.
Yeah.
But it was like the idea of like, I am now this poet. And so now I want to be a poet. And so me writing, me fulfilling that kind of like identity helped me grow and helped me grow into
Yeah.
that. And I think that's so important for people to understand because some people feel like they have to be ready. They have to be ready to be something, they get imposter syndrome, you go into a new place, oh, I'm not ready for this. And it's like, well, no, you got to give yourself time.
Yeah.
You got to give yourself time to grow into it. I think that's so important.
Yeah.
What what are some of the good and bad parts about going to a new place? Because I feel like that's kind of coming back to what we were talking about before, about traveling, because that's what we started and we went on this
Yeah.
amazing tangent. Yeah, what are some of the good parts about going to a new place? What are some of the bad parts people need to be aware of?